Deep in the Amazon rainforest, where satellite signals die and civilization feels like a distant memory, Dr. Marcus Chen drives his machete through another bamboo stalk. The humid air clings to his sweat-soaked shirt as he works with surgical precision, each cut calculated, each joint engineered to perfection. But Marcus isn't just any survivalist. He's the former lead architect behind the world's most classified military defense systems, a man who vanished 3 months ago with blueprints worth billions. Now, as he weaves bamboo into an architectural masterpiece complete with flowing water channels and a crystal-clear fish pond, Marcus knows his time is running out. The corporate hit squad that's been hunting him across 3 continents is getting closer. Every sunrise could be his last. His bamboo sanctuary isn't just a retreat, it's a fortress designed to protect the most dangerous secret in modern warfare, the location of every nuclear facility on Earth. The fish swimming peacefully in his handcrafted pond have no idea they're living above a hidden server that could topple governments. But can 120 days of preparation be enough to survive what's coming? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Marcus wiped sweat from his brow, leaving a streak of mud across his forehead. The bamboo grove he'd discovered 2 weeks ago provided everything he needed: tall, strong poles for the structure's skeleton and thinner shoots for the intricate latticework that would form his walls. His MIT engineering degree hadn't prepared him for construction in 90% humidity, but desperation had proven an excellent teacher. The sound of approaching helicopter rotors made him freeze. He dropped low behind a massive cecropia tree, counting the seconds. The rhythmic thump, thump, thump grew louder, then gradually faded. They were expanding their search grid, getting systematic. Marcus estimated he had maybe 2 weeks before they found this location. He returned to his work with renewed urgency. The foundation of his bamboo house stretched 30 feet long by 20 feet wide, elevated 3 feet off the jungle floor to protect against flooding and provide space for the server cooling system. The fish pond occupied the center courtyard, fed by a diverted stream that Marcus had rerouted using a series of bamboo channels and clay-lined ditches. To any passing aircraft, it would look like a natural jungle clearing with a small indigenous structure. But beneath the deceptively simple exterior lay the product of Marcus's genius. Each bamboo joint had been mathematically calculated to distribute weight and withstand hurricane-force winds. The pond's depth and circulation pattern weren't just for aesthetics. They formed a sophisticated cooling system for the quantum processors hidden in waterproof chambers below. Every element served multiple purposes, from the rain collection gutters disguised as decorative roof trim to the solar panels camouflaged among the broad leaves overhead. A scarlet macaw shrieked in the canopy above, and Marcus instinctively reached for the Sig Sauer P320 tucked into his belt. 3 months of paranoia had rewired his nervous system. Every sound could herald death. The corporate assassins hunting him weren't common mercenaries. They were ex-military specialists equipped with thermal imaging, satellite communication, and unlimited resources. The fact that he'd stayed alive this long was either luck or his own careful planning. Probably both. The stolen data weighing on his conscience had started as a routine security audit of Pentagon contractors. What he'd uncovered in those classified databases had made him physically ill, detailed schematics and GPS coordinates for every nuclear facility on Earth, including ones the public didn't know existed. Private military corporations had compiled this information not for defense, but for the highest bidder. Nations, terrorist organizations, even wealthy individuals could purchase the exact locations and security weaknesses of humanity's most dangerous weapons. Marcus had tried going through official channels first. His security clearance and reputation should have been enough to trigger an investigation. Instead, within 48 hours of filing his report, 3 of his colleagues had died in accidents, and Marcus had become a marked man. The only copy of the data now lived on an encrypted server beneath his bamboo sanctuary insurance against his own murder, and leverage against the corporations that wanted him silenced. A flash of orange caught his eye. Marcus smiled despite the circumstances. His first koi had just surfaced near the pond's edge, where he'd scattered breadcrumbs made from processed palm hearts. The fish were thriving in their new environment, their presence serving as an early warning system for intruders. Disturbed water patterns would alert him to approaching threats long before human eyes could spot movement in the dense jungle. As evening shadows lengthened across the construction site, Marcus allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. 63 days of work had transformed his vision into reality. The main structure was nearly complete, lacking only the final roof sections and interior partitions. More importantly, the hidden defensive systems were operational. Motion sensors disguised as hanging vines surrounded the perimeter. Explosive charges waited beneath false floor panels. His sanctuary might look like a peaceful retreat, but it was designed as a killing ground for anyone who threatened the secret below. The question now was whether he could finish before they found him. Marcus Chen's hands trembled as he lowered the satellite phone, the encrypted warning from his former colleague still echoing in his mind. And they found the patent application 3 days, maybe 4, before they traced the shell companies back to you. He stood at the edge of his bamboo platform, 40 feet above the forest floor, watching mist rise from the canopy like smoke signals announcing his doom. 6 months of careful construction, of weaving together his impossible sanctuary, and now it might all be for nothing. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd spent 15 years at Helix Dynamics designing surveillance systems so sophisticated they could track a target's heartbeat from orbit, and here he was, hoping a wall of bamboo and morning fog would keep him hidden from the very technology he'd helped perfect. Marcus moved with practiced efficiency through his aerial workspace, muscle memory guiding him along pathways he'd carved between the giant timber bamboo groves. Each platform connected to the next through a network of bridges and pulleys, a three-dimensional maze that existed entirely above ground level. No footprints, no cleared land, no satellite signature that would register as human habitation. At least, that had been the theory. He reached the central hub of his sanctuary, where the largest platform housed his workshop and living quarters. Solar panels disguised as bamboo leaves powered his equipment, while rainwater collection systems remained invisible from above. Every detail had been calculated to maintain the illusion of untouched wilderness. But Marcus knew that if Helix wanted him found, his bamboo fortress wouldn't stop them. Not when the secret he'd stolen was worth more than the GDP of most nations. The prototype sat in its secured case, no larger than a smartphone but containing algorithms that could revolutionize or destroy the global economy. Project Lazarus, they'd called it. A quantum encryption system so advanced it could crack any existing security protocol in minutes. Every bank, every government, every classified system on Earth would become an open book to whoever controlled it. Marcus had realized the implications 3 months before his official departure from Helix. He'd watched his colleagues celebrate their breakthrough while executives made calls to private military contractors. Lazarus wasn't being developed for national security or academic research. It was a weapon, and Helix intended to sell it to the highest bidder. So he'd done something that went against every instinct of his ordered, logical mind. He'd stolen it. A distant sound made him freeze, the soft thrum of rotor blades, still miles away but growing closer. Marcus felt his pulse quicken as he moved to his observation post, a carefully camouflaged blind that offered views of the surrounding valleys. Through high-powered binoculars, he spotted the helicopter, a sleek black aircraft with no visible markings, the kind of machine that didn't officially exist. It was following the river valley, methodically searching in a grid pattern that would bring it directly over his position within the hour. Marcus forced himself to think like the engineer he'd always been: variables, probabilities, contingencies. The helicopter suggested they'd narrowed his location to this region, but hadn't pinpointed him exactly. His bamboo camouflage might still work, provided he could eliminate any heat signatures or electronic emissions. He moved quickly, shutting down all non-essential systems and activating the thermal dampeners he'd built into the platform structure. The bamboo itself would help mask his body heat, and the layered canopy above should scatter any infrared scanning attempts. But he couldn't stay hidden forever. If they were this close, it meant his time was running out faster than anticipated. The careful plan he'd constructed, months of preparation before revealing Lazarus's capabilities to the right journalists, the ones who couldn't be bought or silenced, would have to be accelerated. The helicopter's sound grew louder, and Marcus pressed himself against the platform's floor, feeling the bamboo flex slightly under his weight. Through gaps in the canopy, he caught glimpses of the aircraft as it passed overhead, its sophisticated sensors probing the forest below. After 10 minutes that felt like hours, the helicopter moved on, but Marcus knew this was just the beginning. They would be back with ground teams, thermal imaging, maybe even the new resonance scanners that could detect structural anomalies in organic matter. His impossible sanctuary was about to face its first real test. As evening approached, Marcus made his decision. He couldn't wait for the perfect moment to expose Lazarus. The prototype's existence had to be revealed now, before Helix could eliminate him and reclaim their weapon. He powered up his communications array, its antenna disguised as a dead branch extending above the canopy. 3 journalists in different countries, each with encrypted contact protocols he'd memorized before destroying all written records. If he moved fast, he could transmit enough data to ensure Lazarus's secrets would survive, even if he didn't. Marcus began typing the message that would either save the world or seal his fate, while in the distance, more helicopters joined the search. The morning mist clung to the bamboo like ghostly fingers as Marcus worked the pulleys of his ingenious elevator system. 3 months of isolation had transformed him from the polished executive who once commanded boardrooms into something raw, more elemental. His hands bore the calluses of honest labor, his beard had grown wild, and his eyes held the sharp focus of a man who had found his purpose. The platform rose silently through the canopy, carrying him toward what would become the crown jewel of his sanctuary, a workshop suspended 60 feet above the forest floor. Every joint, every connection was bamboo, bound with hemp rope and secured with wooden pins he'd carved by hand. No metal, no synthetic materials, nothing that could be traced or detected by the sophisticated scanning equipment he knew they possessed. As he reached the canopy level, Marcus allowed himself a moment to appreciate the view. The Amazon stretched endlessly in every direction, a green ocean that had swallowed his old life completely. Somewhere out there, beyond the horizon, his former colleagues at Prometheus Industries were probably still searching for him. They'd find his abandoned rental car by now, maybe even the indigenous guide who'd brought him to the river. But the trail would end there, as he'd planned. The memory of that final board meeting still burned in his mind. Project Lazarus, they'd called it. The ultimate convergence of biotechnology and artificial intelligence, promising to revolutionize human existence itself. Marcus had been their golden boy, their visionary engineer who could make the impossible possible, until he'd discovered what they really intended to do with his creation. A sound disrupted his reverie, the distant thrumming of helicopter rotors. Marcus froze, his pulse quickening as the noise grew closer. Through the dense canopy, he caught glimpses of a black aircraft circling the area, perhaps 2 miles away. Too far to see his sanctuary, but close enough to matter. He activated the camouflage system he'd spent weeks perfecting. Canvas panels unfurled automatically, their surfaces painted to mimic the natural patterns of leaves and shadows. Within minutes, his aerial workshop vanished beneath what appeared to be just another section of undisturbed forest. The beauty of bamboo construction was its flexibility. Everything could bend, fold, and hide without breaking. The helicopter passed overhead, its downdraft stirring the false canopy slightly. Marcus pressed himself flat against the platform, hardly daring to breathe. Through gaps in the fabric, he glimpsed the aircraft's sleek profile and recognized the corporate logo emblazoned on its side. Not Prometheus directly. They were too smart for that. But he knew their subsidiaries, their shell companies, their methods. After 20 agonizing minutes, the helicopter moved on, its sound fading into the ambient chorus of the rainforest. Marcus remained motionless for another hour, watching and listening. Only when he was certain they were gone did he begin dismantling the concealment system. They were getting closer. The thought sent ice through his veins, but also steeled his resolve. The prototype hidden in his underground laboratory wasn't just his life's work. It was humanity's insurance policy against what Prometheus planned to unleash. He'd built it as a fail-safe, a way to stop them if they ever tried to deploy Lazarus without the ethical safeguards he'd demanded. Now those safeguards were gone, stripped away by executives who saw only profit margins and market domination. They'd told him the military applications were theoretical, that the civilian benefits would outweigh any risks. But Marcus had read between the lines of their classified briefings. He'd seen the true scope of their ambition, and it terrified him. The platform descended smoothly to ground level, where his living quarters nestled among towering bamboo culms like a natural extension of the forest itself. Solar panels woven into the canopy provided power, while an ingenious water collection system ensured he never went thirsty. He'd created a perfect closed loop, invisible to satellites and sustainable indefinitely. But sustainability meant nothing if they found him before he could complete his work. The prototype was functional but incomplete, lacking the quantum encryption protocols that would make it truly secure. He estimated another 2 weeks to finish the programming, assuming he could work uninterrupted. Marcus pulled out his satellite phone, his one remaining connection to the outside world. The signal was weak but sufficient for the encrypted message he needed to send. His fingers moved quickly over the keypad, typing code words that would mean nothing to casual observers but everything to the handful of allies still fighting the good fight within Prometheus. Bamboo garden thriving, harvest delayed 2 weeks, storm clouds gathering. He hit send and immediately powered down the device. Every transmission was a risk, but his contacts needed to know the timeline. If Prometheus deployed Lazarus before he could stop them, the consequences would be irreversible. The jungle around him seemed to pulse with life and possibility. Here, among the ancient rhythms of growth and decay, he would make his stand. His bamboo sanctuary wasn't just a retreat, it was a fortress, and the battle for humanity's future was about to begin. The first assassin arrived at dawn, moving through the bamboo groves like a ghost in tactical gear. Marcus Chen watched from his elevated platform 40 feet above, his breathing controlled despite the adrenaline flooding his system. The motion sensors he'd installed 3 months ago had given him a 20-minute head start, enough time to activate the sanctuary's defenses and reach his observation post. Through the morning mist, Marcus could see the intruder's methodical approach, professional, careful. The man paused every few steps, scanning for tripwires and cameras, unaware that Marcus had designed something far more sophisticated. The bamboo itself was the sensor network, each grove section connected by hairline fiber optics that detected the slightest vibration. Every footstep, every disturbed leaf registered on Marcus's tablet like seismic data. The assassin reached the first checkpoint, a natural clearing where the path split in 3 directions. Marcus watched him study the tracks, probably wondering why someone would choose the most difficult route to the center. The man chose the left path, exactly as Marcus had hoped. The engineered grove would funnel him toward the maze of false platforms, buying precious time. Marcus descended through the canopy, using a system of pulleys and bamboo bridges, moving silently toward his workshop. Inside the hollowed-out grove chamber, banks of computers hummed quietly, their screens displaying satellite feeds and encrypted communications. The prototype sat in the center like a metallic lotus, 18 months of work compressed into a device the size of a briefcase. The carbon sequestration technology was revolutionary, capable of extracting atmospheric carbon dioxide and converting it into solid graphene structures at unprecedented efficiency. In the wrong hands, it could terraform entire regions, collapsing ecosystems or creating uninhabitable dead zones. The energy requirements alone would destabilize global power grids. Marcus had realized too late that his former employer, Titan Dynamics, wasn't interested in environmental restoration. They wanted a weapon. His tablet chimed softly. The assassin had triggered the false floor in Section 7. Marcus smiled grimly as he watched the man extract himself from the shallow pit, now covered in phosphorescent spores that would make him visible for hours. The bamboo's biochemistry was Marcus's secret weapon. He'd spent months breeding hybrid varieties with enhanced properties. Some secreted natural adhesives, others released tracking compounds, and a few produced mild neurotoxins that caused disorientation. But one assassin meant others were coming. Marcus began the shutdown sequence, uploading his research to a distributed network hidden across thousands of innocent computers worldwide. If Titan wanted his work, they'd have to reassemble it piece by piece, assuming they could even find the fragments. A new alert flashed on his screen. 3 more heat signatures approaching from the eastern perimeter. They moved faster than the first operative, less concerned with stealth. Marcus cursed under his breath. They were forcing his hand, pushing him toward a decision he'd hoped to avoid. The quantum encryption drive contained more than just environmental technology. During his final days at Titan, Marcus had discovered Project Lazarus, a classified program using his carbon manipulation research to develop atmospheric weapons for military applications. The files he'd copied implicated government officials, defense contractors, and corporate executives in what amounted to ecocide for profit. Releasing that information would destroy Titan, but it would also paint a target on every environmental scientist in the country. Through his network of cameras, Marcus watched the first assassin finally reach the decoy workshop, an elaborate facade complete with fake computers and a dummy prototype. The man's frustrated voice crackled through the listening devices. "Target's not here. Site appears abandoned." Marcus was already moving, rappelling down through the grove's heart toward the extraction point. He'd prepared for this scenario, though he'd prayed it would never come. The emergency protocol required destroying the sanctuary and disappearing into the wilderness, carrying only the essential data and a single prototype. The charges were pre-positioned throughout the grove's support structures. Bamboo burned hot and fast, but Marcus had engineered his varieties to burn cold and slow, creating a smokescreen that would last for hours. He paused at the detonator, looking up through the canopy at his impossible creation. 3 years of his life, the most beautiful structure he'd ever built, reduced to camouflage for his escape. His tablet showed the assassins converging on his location. They'd realized the workshop was a decoy and were systematically searching each platform. Marcus had perhaps 10 minutes before they found the real laboratory. He pressed the detonator. Fire bloomed through the bamboo in carefully controlled patterns, creating walls of smoke and confusion. Marcus grabbed the prototype and emergency pack, then activated the final defense, a controlled collapse that would bury the workshop under tons of burning bamboo. The assassins would find nothing but ash and twisted metal. As he disappeared into the smoke, Marcus felt the weight of his choices settling on his shoulders. The sanctuary was gone, but the real battle was just beginning. The satellite phone's shrill ring cut through the morning silence, like a blade. Marcus froze, his hand still gripping the bamboo pole he'd been positioning for the sanctuary's eastern wall. The sound came again, insistent and alien against the backdrop of birdsong and rustling leaves. He'd hidden the phone in a waterproof cache beneath the foundation stones, meant only for absolute emergencies. 3 people knew the number. 2 of them worked for Helix Corporation and had signed documents swearing they'd never use it unless the world was ending. Marcus dropped the bamboo and sprinted to the cache, his heart hammering against his ribs. He yanked out the phone on the 4th ring. "Marcus!" Sarah Chen's voice crackled through the static, tight with fear. "They know." The words hit him like a physical blow. He sank onto a moss-covered log, the phone trembling in his grip. "How much?" "Everything. The quantum resonance project, the theoretical framework, your departure timeline. They've been monitoring my communications for weeks." Sarah's breathing was ragged. I'm at the Vancouver airport. There are men following me, Marcus. Professional ones. Where are you going? Anywhere but here. I cleaned out my accounts this morning, destroyed my hard drives. But Marcus, listen to me. Her voice dropped to an urgent whisper. They have your location data from the supply drops. Hendricks sold us out. Marcus closed his eyes, feeling the sanctuary around him with new awareness. What had been a refuge moments ago now felt like a trap. The bamboo walls he'd so carefully constructed wouldn't stop bullets. The isolation that had felt like protection now meant no witnesses, no help, no escape routes. How long? He asked. They left Seattle 6 hours ago. Military contractors, 3 of them. I intercepted the dispatch order before I ran. Static consumed her voice for a moment. Marcus, what you've built there, is it operational? He looked toward the sanctuary's heart, where the resonance chamber lay hidden beneath an intricate bamboo framework that had taken him 8 months to perfect. The quantum field generators hummed softly, their frequencies synchronized with the natural harmonics of the surrounding forest. It was more than operational. It was revolutionary. Yes, he whispered. Then you know what you have to do. The line went dead. Marcus stared at the phone for a long moment, then hurled it against a Douglas fir. It exploded into fragments of plastic and circuitry that scattered across the forest floor like technological confetti. He ran to the sanctuary, his mind racing through contingencies he'd hoped never to use. The resonance chamber could be activated remotely, but the sequence required precise timing and environmental conditions. Too early, and the quantum field would collapse without achieving resonance. Too late, and whoever wanted his work would have it. Inside the bamboo structure, Marcus moved with practiced efficiency. He pulled aside carefully woven panels to reveal a console that looked impossibly advanced amid the organic architecture. Banks of processors hummed quietly, their cooling systems integrated seamlessly into the sanctuary's natural ventilation. His fingers flew over the quantum encryption keys, uploading 18 months of research into a distributed network of servers scattered across 12 countries. Even if they captured the physical resonance chamber, the theoretical framework would survive. A branch snapped in the distance, then another. Marcus's blood froze. He'd learned every sound of this forest, could distinguish between deer trails and hiking paths, between falling deadwood and deliberate footsteps. These were deliberate. He activated the chamber's initialization sequence, watching progress bars crawl across his monitors with agonizing slowness. The quantum field generators needed 47 minutes to reach full resonance. He might have 5. Moving like a ghost through his own creation, Marcus gathered the portable drives containing his backup calculations. He'd built dead drops throughout the surrounding wilderness, hidden caches that could preserve his work even if the sanctuary burned. The footsteps were closer now, moving with tactical precision through the underbrush, 3 separate paths converging on his location, just as Sarah had warned. Marcus slipped through a hidden exit in the sanctuary's north wall, a gap disguised so perfectly it seemed like natural bamboo growth. He'd spent weeks perfecting the camouflage, weaving living shoots with dried poles until the seam became invisible. Behind him, the resonance chamber continued its slow climb toward activation. If his calculations were correct, the quantum field would reach critical resonance in 43 minutes. The resulting energy release would be visible from orbit, a beacon announcing to the world that humanity had crossed another threshold. But first, he had to survive long enough to see it happen. Marcus melted into the forest, following game trails he'd memorized during months of solitary exploration. The men hunting him might have military training and advanced equipment, but they were strangers in his sanctuary. He intended to teach them exactly what that meant. The corporate helicopter circled Marcus Chen's sanctuary like a metallic vulture, its rotor wash bending the bamboo groves in violent waves. From his concealed position beneath the canopy walkway, Marcus watched 3 figures rappel down ropes, their tactical gear gleaming against the morning sun. They moved with predatory precision, spreading out to form a perimeter around his life's work. Marcus pressed himself deeper into the shadows of his elevated hideout, a small chamber he'd woven between the living bamboo walls 30 feet above ground. His heart hammered against his ribs as he recognized the lead figure, Director Sarah Voss from Meridian Industries, the woman who'd once been his mentor before becoming his greatest threat. She'd found him faster than he'd anticipated. Below, Voss removed her tactical helmet and scanned the intricate bamboo structures with obvious admiration. Incredible! Her voice carried upward through the morning air. The man always was a genius with sustainable architecture. Her two companions, armed security contractors by their bearing, flanked her as they approached the main pavilion. One of them, a scarred man with cold eyes, spoke into his radio. Perimeter secure, no visual on the target. Marcus forced himself to breathe slowly, remembering his wilderness survival training. They hadn't spotted him yet, but it was only a matter of time. The sanctuary that had been his refuge for 18 months now felt like an elaborate trap. Every bamboo bridge, every suspended platform, all the pathways he knew by heart, could become escape routes or dead ends depending on how quickly Voss's team adapted to the three-dimensional maze he'd created. "Dr. Chen!" Voss called out, her voice echoing through the bamboo corridors. "I know you're here. Your thermal signature shows recent cooking fires, and these structures are too well maintained to be abandoned." She paused beneath a particularly elegant arch where Marcus had spent weeks perfecting the joint angles. "We need to talk about the Prometheus files." The words hit Marcus like ice water. They knew. Somehow, despite all his precautions, Meridian had connected him to the classified research he'd stolen before his disappearance. The files contained more than just his revolutionary bamboo cultivation techniques. They held the secret to rapid carbon sequestration that could reverse climate change within a decade. But they also revealed Meridian's plan to weaponize the same technology, turning carbon capture into a tool for environmental blackmail. Marcus shifted position carefully, causing a slight creak in the bamboo housing. The sound was barely audible, but the scarred contractor's head snapped upward immediately. Their eyes met across the vertical distance, and Marcus knew his concealment had failed. "There," the man barked, raising his weapon. Marcus rolled sideways as bamboo splinters exploded around him, the suppressed gunfire punching holes through his carefully crafted walls. He scrambled across a narrow bridge toward the sanctuary's eastern section, where he'd prepared an emergency cache months ago. Behind him, he heard Voss shouting orders, her professional composure cracking. "Don't kill him, you idiots. We need him alive." The elevated walkways swayed under Marcus's desperate sprint, but his engineering instincts guided every step. He'd calculated load tolerances for each joint, tested stress points during countless solitary evenings. The bamboo held firm under his weight, while he heard heavier footsteps struggling on the unfamiliar pathways behind him. A second helicopter appeared on the horizon, this one black and unmarked. Marcus felt his stomach drop as he realized Meridian had brought backup. Whatever resources they'd committed to finding him meant the Prometheus files were worth even more than he'd imagined. The carbon sequestration process wasn't just revolutionary, it was potentially worth trillions in carbon credits and environmental contracts. Marcus reached his emergency cache, a waterproof container hidden within a hollow bamboo section. Inside were basic survival supplies, a satellite communication device, and 3 flash drives containing copies of the Prometheus data. He'd hoped never to use them, but Voss's presence changed everything. The woman who'd once championed environmental sustainability had sold her soul to corporate interests, and now she'd brought armed killers to his doorstep. The second helicopter was landing in a clearing 200 yards away, disgorging more tactical teams. Marcus activated the satellite communicator and began transmitting a burst message to his contact at the International Environmental Court. If Meridian wanted the Prometheus files badly enough to murder for them, then the world needed to know what Meridian was planning. "Marcus," Voss's voice was closer now, coming from the Western Bridge approach. "You're surrounded, and you know it. Come down peacefully, and we can work something out. The board is willing to offer you complete immunity and a research position with unlimited funding." Marcus almost laughed at the absurdity. Unlimited funding to develop weapons for the same people destroying the planet's climate systems. He finished transmitting the data burst and shouldered his emergency pack, then looked up through the bamboo canopy toward the mountains, rising beyond his sanctuary. The real chase was just beginning. The morning mist clung to the bamboo grove like ghostly fingers as Marcus made his final adjustments to the sanctuary's defense systems. His hands moved with practiced precision, connecting bioluminescent sensors to pressure plates hidden beneath carefully arranged leaves. Each component had been grown rather than manufactured, cultivated from modified organisms that responded to human presence with subtle chemical signals. Sarah watched from the elevated platform, her laptop balanced precariously on a makeshift bamboo desk. The quantum encryption algorithms scrolled across her screen in endless streams of code, but her attention kept drifting to Marcus below. There was something almost ritualistic about his movements, as if he were performing a sacred ceremony rather than preparing for war. "How much time do we have?" she called down, though she dreaded the answer. Marcus paused, wiping sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand. Chen's last transmission suggested there may be 6 hours behind us, but that was assuming they'd follow our original trail. He gestured toward the canopy above, where his bioacoustic monitoring network hummed with barely audible frequencies. "The bamboo's been whispering all morning. Something's coming from the east." The words sent a chill down Sarah's spine. She'd learned to trust Marcus's seemingly mystical connection to this place. The bamboo sanctuary wasn't just an architectural marvel. It was a living organism that responded to his touch like a musical instrument. Every stalk, every leaf, every root served as both shelter and sentinel. "The prototype," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Is it ready?" Marcus climbed the spiral staircase carved into the massive bamboo trunk that served as the sanctuary's central pillar. When he reached her level, his expression was grim. "Ready enough. But Sarah, you need to understand what we're dealing with. Nexus isn't just after the technology, they're after the principle itself. If they can reverse engineer what I've built here, they'll militarize it. Imagine entire forests weaponized, turned into surveillance networks. Natural ecosystems converted into biological warfare systems." Sarah's fingers stopped moving across the keyboard. She'd known Marcus's work was revolutionary, but the full implications were only now becoming clear. The bamboo responds to your commands because you've integrated it with neural interface technology. More than that. Marcus moved to a section of the platform where dozens of hair-thin fibers emerged from the bamboo walls, pulsing with soft bioluminescence. "I've created a symbiotic relationship. My neural patterns guide the growth and behavior of the entire grove. In return, the bamboo shares its sensory data with me. I can feel every footstep within a mile radius, sense changes in humidity that indicate approaching weather systems, even detect the electromagnetic signatures of electronic devices." He pressed his palm against the central trunk, and Sarah watched as waves of light rippled outward through the visible fibers. "They're closer than I thought. 3 teams, approaching from different directions. Professional hunters, not the corporate security we dealt with before." Sarah's blood ran cold. "Assassins?" "Worse. Nexus has hired military contractors, ex-special forces with advanced tactical equipment." Marcus's expression darkened as he processed the sensory data flowing through the bamboo network. "They're using some kind of biotoxin dispersal system. They plan to kill the bamboo first, blind me, then move in for extraction." The casual cruelty of it hit Sarah like a physical blow. These people weren't just willing to destroy Marcus's life's work, they were prepared to commit ecological murder to achieve their goals. The bamboo grove represented years of patient cultivation, a delicate balance between human innovation and natural growth. To them, it was merely an obstacle to be eliminated. "How long before they're in position?" she asked, her fingers already flying across the keyboard as she initiated the final upload sequence. 20 minutes, maybe less. Marcus moved to another section of the platform where a collection of seed pods hung from carefully tended vines. Each pod glowed with the same soft bioluminescence as the neural network, but their light pulsed with different rhythms. But I have one advantage they don't know about, which is the bamboo doesn't just respond to my commands. It learns from them. His smile was grim as he began plucking specific seed pods from their vines. For the past 3 years, I've been teaching it to defend itself, not just passively but actively. The grove can reshape its own structure, redirect root systems, even release defensive chemical compounds. Sarah stared at him, understanding dawning. You've turned the entire sanctuary into a weapon. I've given it the ability to protect itself, Marcus corrected. There's a difference. But Sarah, if something happens to me, if they manage to break the neural link— He handed her a small device that looked like a cross between a computer chip and a living seed. This contains everything: the complete biological interface protocols, the neural mapping algorithms, the growth pattern templates, everything needed to recreate what I've built here. The weight of responsibility settled on her shoulders like a lead blanket. In her hand, she held the future of human biological integration and the potential for its catastrophic misuse. The sound of distant rotors began to echo through the grove, growing steadily louder. The hunt was about to begin. Marcus pressed his back against the smooth bamboo wall, listening to the whispered voices carrying through the pre-dawn darkness. 3 distinct accents. Corporate security, not local authorities. His worst fears were materializing outside his sanctuary's perimeter. The blueprint tucked inside his jacket seemed to burn against his chest. 18 months of careful hiding, and somehow Helix Industries had found him. The revolutionary carbon sequestration design that could reshape global climate policy was apparently worth more than his life. He slipped through the interconnected chambers of his bamboo fortress, each room flowing seamlessly into the next through passages he'd carved with mathematical precision. The structure had become an extension of his mind. Every joint, every support beam calculated to withstand both nature's fury and human intrusion. Thermal imaging shows one heat signature, northeast quadrant. A voice drifted through the walls. Remember, we need him alive until we get the files. Marcus grimaced. They wanted the complete research, not just his death. That bought him time, but also guaranteed they wouldn't simply burn down his sanctuary from a distance. Moving silently across the woven floor mats, he reached his communications array. The satellite uplink hummed softly as he initiated an emergency transmission to Dr. Sarah Chen, his former colleague at MIT. If something happened to him, she needed to know about Project Gaia, the technology that could pull gigatons of carbon from the atmosphere using genetically modified bamboo forests. Sarah, they've found me, he whispered into the encrypted channel. Coordinates 37 north, 118 west. The Helix board must have realized what they rejected. If I don't make it out— A crossbow bolt splintered the bamboo beside his head. Marcus rolled sideways as footsteps thundered through his sanctuary's outer chambers. They'd breached his perimeter faster than anticipated. He snatched the laptop containing his research backup and sprinted toward the emergency exit he'd concealed behind a false wall. The bamboo structure groaned as heavy boots pounded through its corridors, but the flexible joints absorbed the impact without cracking. His engineering held firm even as his world collapsed. Northeast chamber is empty. Check the workshop. Marcus slipped through the hidden passage into the root cellar he'd excavated beneath his main laboratory. The space was barely large enough for one person, but it connected to a tunnel leading toward the river gorge. He'd spent months digging this escape route, hoping he'd never need it. The laptop's hard drive whirred as he initiated the data destruction protocol. Whatever happened next, Helix wouldn't get the complete research. But Sarah would. He'd transmitted the core algorithms during their monthly check-ins, disguised as academic discussions about sustainable architecture. Above him, voices grew frustrated as they searched empty rooms. His modular design worked against them. Without understanding the sanctuary's logic, they were chasing shadows through a 3-dimensional puzzle. "Sir, we've got a problem," one of the hunters reported over radio. This place is like a maze. Every room looks identical, and the passages don't follow normal construction patterns. Marcus allowed himself a grim smile. He'd based the design on fractal geometry, creating a structure that seemed simple but became increasingly complex the deeper one penetrated. Each chamber was simultaneously entrance and exit, laboratory and living space, depending on how you approached it. He crawled through the tunnel toward the gorge, dragging the laptop behind him. The soil was damp from recent rains, making progress slow but muffling any sound. 20 more feet and he'd reached the hidden exit camouflaged among the riverbank vegetation. "Found something," a voice called from above. "There's a concealed hatch in the workshop floor." Marcus's pulse quickened. They'd discovered the root cellar. He abandoned stealth for speed, scrambling through the final stretch of tunnel as boots pounded overhead. The laptop caught on a root, and he heard its plastic case crack. Pale dawn light filtered through the camouflaged exit. Marcus burst from the tunnel into dense riverside undergrowth. The broken laptop clutched against his chest. The Columbia River rushed past below, its waters dark and swift in the early morning shadows. Behind him, shouts erupted as his pursuers found the tunnel entrance. They'd be through in minutes, but he had one advantage. They needed him alive while he was prepared for any outcome to protect his research. Marcus looked down at the laptop's cracked screen, where fragments of his life's work flickered and died. Project Gaia represented humanity's best hope for reversing climate change, but only if it stayed out of Helix Industries' hands. They'd weaponize it, patenting the technology while letting the planet burn unless governments paid their ransom. The sound of voices grew closer through the tunnel behind him. Marcus clutched the laptop tighter and began picking his way down the steep riverbank. He had perhaps a 3-minute head start before trained killers emerged behind him, and the Columbia River offered his only escape route. The bamboo sanctuary he'd spent 2 years perfecting was lost, but the knowledge lived on in Sarah's files. Now he just had to survive long enough to ensure she could complete their work. The morning mist clung to the bamboo grove like smoke from a dying fire. Marcus pressed his back against the cool stalks, listening for the telltale snap of boots on fallen leaves. Silence stretched between heartbeats, broken only by the distant call of a hornbill somewhere in the canopy above. 3 days had passed since the first assassin had found him. 3 days of cat and mouse through terrain Marcus knew better than anyone alive. But they kept coming, wave after wave of trained killers, each more desperate than the last. Chen's patience was clearly wearing thin. The sanctuary that had taken him 2 years to build now served as his fortress. Every bamboo tunnel, every hidden passage, every carefully engineered trap was a weapon in his arsenal. The assassins had superior firepower and training, but Marcus had home field advantage and something they couldn't match: intimate knowledge of what they were truly after. His fingers found the small device in his jacket pocket. No bigger than a thumb drive, it contained the complete blueprints for Project Evergreen. Not just the theoretical framework that Chen's people had stolen pieces of over the years, but the full implementation guide. The real secret wasn't the carbon sequestration technology itself, it was the manufacturing process that made it economically viable at global scale. A twig snapped 50 meters to his left. Marcus slipped deeper into the grove, following a path invisible to untrained eyes. The bamboo had grown according to his design, creating natural corridors and dead ends. He'd spent months training the growth patterns, guiding each shoot until the entire grove became a living maze. The footsteps were closer now, 2 sets, moving with military precision. Marcus reached a junction where 3 paths diverged and chose the middle route, stepping carefully on the packed earth he'd prepared years ago. His boots made no sound. Behind him, a sharp whistle cut through the morning air. Hand signals. They were coordinating a sweep pattern, probably trying to drive him toward a kill zone. These weren't the usual corporate security Marcus had evaded in his previous life. These were professionals. He needed to reach the server farm. Hidden beneath the sanctuary's central pavilion, protected by meters of earth and bamboo root systems, his computers continued their work. For 18 months, they'd been running simulations, calculating optimal deployment patterns for Project Evergreen across different climate zones. The data was invaluable, and Chen would stop at nothing to claim it. Marcus dropped to his belly and crawled through a tunnel barely wide enough for his shoulders. The bamboo shoots formed a natural camouflage overhead, filtering the morning light into dappled patterns. His breathing sounded thunderous in the confined space, but he forced himself to move slowly. Patience had kept him alive this long. The tunnel emerged near the meditation garden, where he'd spent countless hours refining his designs. Now the carefully raked gravel bore boot prints from yesterday's incursion. They'd been thorough, searching every structure above ground. But they hadn't found the real prize. A shadow moved across the garden's entrance. Marcus froze, counting seconds. The shadow passed, then returned. Someone was posted there, watching for his approach. They'd learned from their mistakes, adapted their tactics. How many more were there? How long before they discovered the underground access points? His satellite phone buzzed against his ribs. One message, from an encrypted number he recognized. Offer stands. 72 hours remaining. See, Chen was still playing games, still pretending this was a negotiation, as if Marcus would hand over technology that could save the planet to the same corporation that had spent decades suppressing climate solutions, as if money could buy back a livable future for his daughter's generation. Marcus deleted the message and powered down the phone. Whatever Chen was planning, these 72 hours would be crucial. Either Marcus would find a way to upload Project Evergreen to every major research institution simultaneously, or Chen would claim it and bury it in corporate vaults until the profit margins aligned with planetary crisis. The morning mist was beginning to lift, reducing his cover. He needed to move before full daylight exposed his position. The server farm's emergency protocols were designed for exactly this scenario. If he could reach the main terminal, he could trigger a data burst that would scatter the technology across 100 different recipients before Chen's people could stop it. But first, he had to survive the next hour. Marcus traced a path in his mind, calculating angles and timing. The assassins would expect him to run, to try escaping deeper into the wilderness. They wouldn't anticipate him moving toward the most dangerous zone, the sanctuary's heart, where their numbers meant nothing, and his preparations could turn the hunters into the hunted. He smiled grimly and began crawling toward destiny, carrying the future of human civilization in his pocket and the weight of impossible choices on his shoulders. The assassin's body lay motionless beneath the fallen bamboo trap, dark blood seeping into the forest floor. Marcus stood frozen, his engineer's mind struggling to process what had just happened. He'd built defenses to delay, not to kill. The weight of what he'd done pressed against his chest like a vice. Sarah emerged from behind a cluster of trees, her face pale but determined. "We need to move, now. There will be others." Marcus knelt beside the fallen man, checking for identification. Nothing. No wallet, no phone, just military-grade equipment and an earpiece crackling with static. He pocketed the communication device, his hands trembling slightly. "The data center," Marcus said, his voice barely a whisper. "They can't get to the quantum drives." They ran through the bamboo groves, following paths that Marcus had memorized during months of careful construction. Behind them, the forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the next wave of violence to arrive. Marcus led Sarah through a series of hidden passages, each one camouflaged by his ingenious use of living bamboo walls that could slide and shift. The earpiece crackled to life. "Alpha Team, report status." Marcus and Sarah exchanged glances. He brought the device closer, listening to the cold, professional voice on the other end. "Alpha Team, you missed your check-in. We're moving to secondary positions." Sarah grabbed his arm. "How many are there?" "Too many," Marcus replied, remembering the thermal signatures he'd detected earlier on his perimeter sensors. "At least 6 more, maybe 8. They reached the heart of his sanctuary, where the main data center hummed quietly within a structure that looked like nothing more than an elaborate bamboo pavilion. Solar panels disguised as leaves fed power to the quantum servers hidden beneath the floor. 2 years of his life's work, distilled into terabytes of revolutionary research. Marcus activated a hidden panel, revealing screens filled with scrolling code. The neural interface protocols, he explained, his fingers flying across the keyboard. If Hexton gets this technology, they won't just control markets or governments, they'll control human consciousness itself. Sarah stared at the data streaming across the monitors. Oh my God, Marcus, this is what you've been hiding? Direct brain-computer interface with quantum processing power. Imagine being able to implant thoughts, memories, even personality traits directly into someone's mind. Now imagine a corporation with that capability. The implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. They could reshape society from the inside out. I discovered what they were planning while I was still working for them. They weren't developing medical applications like they claimed. They were building a system for mass neural manipulation, population control through thought modification. The earpiece crackled again. Movement detected, northwest quadrant, converging on primary structure. Marcus began initiating deletion protocols, but the quantum drives would need 20 minutes to completely purge themselves, time they didn't have. There's another way, he said, moving to a different console. Emergency upload to the distributed network. Anonymous servers across 40 countries. The research stays alive, but it becomes open source. No one controls it. Sarah nodded. Do it. As the upload began, Marcus heard the first bamboo traps triggering in the distance. Shouts echoed through the forest, followed by the distinctive crack of assault rifles. His peaceful sanctuary was becoming a war zone. 15% uploaded. They're through the outer perimeter, Sarah said, monitoring the security feeds. Coming from 3 directions. Marcus activated additional defenses, watching as automated bamboo barriers rose from the ground, redirecting the attackers into predetermined kill zones. His engineering training had never prepared him for this kind of tactical thinking, but desperation was proving an excellent teacher. 30% uploaded. Gunfire erupted closer now, the sound of bullets splintering bamboo echoing through the grove. Marcus saw muzzle flashes on the security monitors as the remaining assassins fought through his maze of natural obstacles. There, Sarah pointed at one of the screens. Southeast approach. They've found the direct path. Marcus's heart sank. 3 figures in tactical gear were moving efficiently through his defenses, their leaders studying each trap before bypassing it with professional expertise. These weren't common mercenaries, they were specialists. 50% uploaded. The backup protocols, Marcus said suddenly. If they breach the data center, everything uploads automatically to a public forum. Every major news outlet, every university, every government database. They can kill us, but they can't stop the information. The lead assassin appeared on the closest monitor, less than 100 meters away. Marcus could see the man's face clearly now, and recognition hit him like ice water. Kendrick, he breathed. Sarah turned. You know him? Hexton's head of security. If they sent him personally, this isn't just about protecting their research anymore. Marcus met her eyes, understanding the final piece of the puzzle. They're planning to implement it, soon. The upload bar showed 70% as Kendrick's voice echoed through the bamboo walls outside. Marcus Chen, we need to talk. The morning mist clung to the bamboo like ghostly fingers as David crouched beside the hidden panel, his hands trembling as he input the final sequence. The quantum resonance chamber hummed to life beneath the sanctuary's foundation, its crystalline core pulsing with an otherworldly blue light that seemed to breathe with the rhythm of the earth itself. Sarah pressed against his shoulder, watching the holographic display materialize in the air before them. Oh my God, David, this is what they're after. The projection showed a 3-dimensional model of molecular structures dancing in perfect harmony. carbon chains reorganizing themselves at the quantum level, transforming atmospheric CO2 into solid graphene lattices with unprecedented efficiency. But this wasn't just carbon capture, it was atmospheric engineering on a planetary scale. 3 years of work, David whispered, his voice barely audible above the chamber's resonant hum. The bamboo isn't just the sanctuary's building material, it's the delivery system. Each grove I've cultivated carries nanoscale quantum processors in its cellular matrix. When activated simultaneously, they could process teratons of atmospheric carbon within months. Sarah's breath caught. You're talking about reversing climate change in real time. More than that. David's finger traced the projection, showing cascading effects rippling across weather patterns, ocean temperatures, and atmospheric pressure. This technology could literally reset Earth's climate to pre-industrial levels, but in the wrong hands. He didn't need to finish. Sarah understood. The same process that could heal the planet could also weaponize the atmosphere itself, creating artificial ice ages, devastating droughts, or catastrophic storms with surgical precision. A sharp crack echoed through the chamber. Not bamboo settling, but something harder. Metal against stone. David's blood turned to ice as he recognized the sound. Boots on the rocky approach to the sanctuary. He killed the projection and sealed the chamber with practiced efficiency, but the quantum resonance continued its low thrum beneath their feet. "How many?" Sarah breathed, her hand instinctively moving to the bamboo staff she'd learned to wield over the past days. David closed his eyes, listening to the pattern of footfalls. His months of solitude had sharpened his senses to an almost preternatural level. 4, maybe 5, moving in formation. They slipped through the sanctuary's hidden passages, channels David had woven between the bamboo walls like arteries through a living organism. The structure was more than architecture. It was biomimicry at its finest, designed to flow and adapt like the forests that had inspired it. Through gaps in the bamboo lattice, David caught glimpses of black tactical gear moving through the morning shadows. These weren't the same corporate security team from before. These operatives moved with lethal precision, their weapons equipped with sound suppressors, their communications coordinated through silent hand signals. Marcus had escalated. Sarah touched David's arm, pointing toward the eastern wall, where 2 figures were setting up what looked like a sophisticated scanning device. The quantum resonance chamber was shielded, but if they had the right equipment... David's mind raced through possibilities. The sanctuary's defenses were elegant but passive, designed to conceal, not to fight. He'd never intended to wage war from this place of peace. But as he watched the operatives systematically probe his creation, he realized that sometimes preservation required destruction. He led Sarah deeper into the sanctuary's heart, to a chamber she hadn't seen before. Here, bamboo gave way to exposed bedrock, and ancient cave paintings flickered in the dim light from David's quantum resonators. The drawings showed figures working in harmony with nature, their hands raised toward the sky as plants and animals flourished around them. "The indigenous people who lived here understood something we forgot," David said, his voice echoing off the stone walls. "Technology isn't separate from nature, it's part of it. That's why the quantum processors bond with bamboo cellulose. That's why this place chose me as much as I chose it." Sarah studied the paintings, understanding dawning in her eyes. "You're not just protecting the technology, you're protecting the principle. The idea that healing and harming are choices, not inevitabilities." A muffled explosion shook dust from the cave ceiling. The operatives had breached the sanctuary's outer defenses. David moved to another hidden panel, this one carved directly into the living rock. "There's something else Marcus doesn't know. The quantum resonance isn't contained to this chamber. It's already begun." His fingers danced across controls that seemed more grown than built. The cave paintings began to glow, responding to quantum frequencies that bridged the gap between ancient wisdom and impossible technology. "Every bamboo grove I've planted over the past 3 years carries dormant processors. They're all connected through quantum entanglement, a network spanning continents. Marcus thinks he needs to capture the source, but the source is already everywhere. The chamber's resonance deepened, and Sarah felt it in her bones, a harmony that connected this hidden sanctuary to bamboo forests across the globe. David hadn't just built a refuge, he'd planted the seeds of planetary transformation. But as combat boots echoed in the passages above them, she realized they still had to survive long enough to see those seeds grow. The morning mist clung to the bamboo grove like a shroud as Marcus Chen worked feverishly in his hidden laboratory. His hands moved with practiced precision across the quantum processor's crystalline surface, each adjustment bringing him closer to completing what could either save humanity or damn it forever. The device hummed with barely contained energy, its bioluminescent core pulsing in rhythm with his racing heartbeat. 3 days had passed since the first corporate team had found his sanctuary. 3 days since he'd watched Sarah Martinez bleed out on his perfectly engineered floor while trying to protect secrets she didn't even understand. The weight of her sacrifice pressed against his chest like a physical thing, making each breath a conscious effort. Through the laboratory's bamboo-filtered windows, Marcus could see movement in the forest beyond. They were coming again, more teams, better equipped, more desperate. The leaked fragments of his research had clearly reached the wrong hands, and now every major corporation and government agency wanted what he'd built. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd come here to create something beautiful, a fusion of technology and nature that could revolutionize how humanity interacted with its environment. Instead, he'd created the most sought-after weapon on Earth. His tablet chimed with an encrypted message from Dr. Elena Vasquez, his former research partner at Meridian Technologies. The text was brief but chilling. They have the Jakarta facility, 30 dead. They're calling it an industrial accident. How many more will die for your conscience, Marcus? He closed the message without responding. Elena wouldn't understand. None of them would. They saw only the immediate applications, the military contracts, the stock prices that would soar once the technology went public. They couldn't comprehend the long-term consequences of quantum biological fusion in the wrong hands. The bamboo walls around him had been grown using his own innovations, each strand programmed at the molecular level to be stronger than steel while maintaining its organic properties. The entire sanctuary was a living testament to what was possible when technology served nature instead of dominating it. But even his magnificent creation couldn't hold back the tide of greed and violence that followed him here. A sharp crack echoed through the grove. Someone had triggered one of his perimeter alarms. Marcus's fingers flew across the control interface, activating the sanctuary's defensive systems. The bamboo itself became his ally, sections of the grove shifting and rearranging to create false paths and dead ends. Thorned vines erupted from the ground at predetermined points, while hidden speakers projected his voice in a dozen different directions. "You're trespassing on protected land," his amplified voice boomed through the forest. "Leave now and you won't be harmed." The response came in the form of automatic weapons fire. Bullets shredded through the outer bamboo barriers, sending splinters flying like wooden shrapnel. These weren't corporate security teams anymore, they were military contractors with kill orders. Marcus activated the final protocol, the one he'd hoped never to use. Deep beneath the sanctuary, quantum processors began overloading in a carefully controlled cascade. If he couldn't protect his work, he would ensure no one could steal it. The technology would die with him. But first, he had one last card to play. His fingers found the emergency transmitter hidden beneath his workbench, a quantum-encrypted device that would broadcast everything to a network of trusted scientists worldwide. Within minutes, his complete research would be in the hands of universities and independent researchers across 6 continents. The corporations could kill him, but they couldn't kill the knowledge itself. As he initiated the upload, movement outside the laboratory caught his eye. A figure in tactical gear was approaching through the bamboo maze, moving with the fluid precision of a professional killer. But something was wrong. The figure was alone and moving too carefully for an assault team. Marcus zoomed in using his security cameras and felt his blood freeze. The face beneath the tactical helmet was familiar, though older and harder than he remembered. Rebecca Torres, his former protégé, the brilliant young engineer he'd mentored at Meridian before discovering her work on weaponized quantum systems. She'd found him not as an enemy but as competition. The upload completed just as Rebecca reached the laboratory's entrance. Through the reinforced bamboo barrier, her voice was clear and confident. "Hello, Marcus. It's time we talked. I know you're watching," she continued, "and I know you've just transmitted something you shouldn't have. That was a mistake." Marcus closed his eyes and felt the weight of all his choices settling on his shoulders. The quantum processors beneath his feet hummed with growing instability, counting down to an explosion that would level half the mountainside. Rebecca thought she'd won, but she had no idea what she'd walked into. The real question was whether he had the courage to trigger the final sequence. The sound of helicopters grew louder, their rotors beating against the mountain air like mechanical thunder. Marcus pressed himself against the cool bamboo wall of the communications hub, his fingers still dancing across the keyboard as code streamed across multiple monitors. The upload progress bar crawled forward, 63% complete. "How much longer?" Sarah whispered, crouched beside him with the rifle trained on the entrance. 6 minutes, maybe 7. Marcus wiped sweat from his forehead. The compression algorithm is working, but Tanaka's servers are fighting back with countermeasures. Elena burst through the doorway, her face pale. "They've found the primary access route. 3 teams, heavily armed, moving up the canyon. Dr. Chen estimates 15 minutes before they reach the perimeter." The helicopters circled overhead like predatory birds. Marcus knew they couldn't land directly on the sanctuary. The bamboo canopy was too thick, the terrain too treacherous. But they could rappel down, create multiple entry points, turn his carefully designed refuge into a trap. "There," Sarah pointed through the woven bamboo slats. Dark shapes moved between the trees below, advancing with military precision. "They're not waiting for the canyon teams." Marcus's hands never stopped typing. The files containing 5 years of research, proof of Tanaka Industries' illegal experiments, evidence of their willingness to murder anyone who threatened their profits. All of it needed to reach the secure servers before the assassins reached them. 71%, he muttered. A sharp crack echoed through the sanctuary as bamboo splintered somewhere in the distance. Then another. They were cutting through his barriers, dismantling the very walls he'd built to protect not just himself, but the truth. Elena activated her radio. "All positions. They're coming through sectors 2 and 5. Remember, we need to buy time, not win a war." The irony wasn't lost on Marcus. He'd come here to escape violence, to build something pure and sustainable in a world poisoned by greed. Now that same world had followed him, threatening to destroy everything he'd created. "Movement on the walkway," Sarah said, adjusting her scope. 2 figures, moving fast. Through the gaps in the bamboo, Marcus glimpsed tactical gear and assault weapons. These weren't security guards or corporate enforcers, they were professionals, the kind of people who erased problems permanently. The upload bar hit 78%. A burst of automatic gunfire shattered the morning calm, followed by Elena's voice on the radio. "Contact in Sector 2. They're through the outer barriers." Marcus felt the bamboo structure sway slightly as someone climbed the support beams below. His sanctuary, designed to move with wind and weather, now betrayed the presence of intruders. He'd built it to be in harmony with nature, not to withstand an assault. "Sarah, can you—" Already on it. She shifted position, angling toward the sound. "But there are too many of them. They're coordinating the attack." 83%. The screens flickered as interference disrupted the satellite connection. Marcus cursed, recognizing the signature of military-grade jammers. They were trying to cut his lifeline to the outside world, trap the evidence in this isolated fortress of bamboo and dreams. "Backup connection," he said, fingers flying across a secondary keyboard, rotating through the mesh network. The progress bar stuttered, stopped. then resumed its crawl toward completion. But slower now, fighting against electronic warfare as much as physical assault. Explosion rocked the sanctuary as something detonated in the lower levels. Chen's voice crackled through the radio. "They've breached the workshop, falling back to secondary positions." Smoke began to drift up through the bamboo flooring. Marcus realized with growing horror that they might be planning to burn him out, destroy the sanctuary and everything in it. The perfect crime, a tragic accident, a brilliant engineer consumed by the wilderness he'd tried to tame. 91%, he announced. Sarah squeezed off 3 quick shots, then ducked as return fire splintered the bamboo above their heads. "They're on the main platform, moving toward us." Elena's voice cut through the chaos. "Marcus, whatever you're doing, do it faster. We can't hold them much longer." The helicopters descended, their rotor wash bending the bamboo canopy as ropes dropped through the gaps. More figures in black tactical gear began their descent, turning his aerial sanctuary into a war zone. 96%. Footsteps pounded on the walkway outside. Voices shouted coordinates and tactical updates. The modern world had found his refuge, brought its weapons and violence and corporate malice into the one place he'd thought might remain pure. 98%. The door exploded inward in a shower of bamboo fragments and smoke. Dark figures poured through the opening, weapons raised, voices demanding surrender. Sarah spun toward them, rifle coming up. Elena's radio crackled with desperate status updates. The screen showed 99%, the progress bar so close to completion that Marcus could taste victory. Then everything went white as the first flashbang detonated, and the battle for truth entered its final desperate phase. The helicopter's rotors cut through the dawn air like mechanical wasps, their sound growing steadily louder as Chen pressed himself against the cold bamboo wall. Sarah crouched beside him, her breathing shallow and controlled, while Marcus kept watch through a gap in the woven panels. 3 minutes out, Marcus whispered, his military training evident in his calm assessment. "Maybe 4 if we're lucky." Chen's fingers traced the encryption device in his pocket, the quantum processor that contained 5 years of his life's work. The technology to revolutionize clean energy, to make fossil fuels obsolete overnight, to change everything. Nexus Industries had killed for less, and they would certainly kill for this. "The evacuation tunnel," Chen said, pointing toward a barely visible opening behind the main support beam. "It leads to the river gorge. We can—" A sharp crack of splintering bamboo cut him off. Through the sanctuary's entrance, black-clad figures moved like shadows, their assault rifles gleaming in the filtered morning light. The corporate death squad had found them. Sarah grabbed Chen's arm. "Go, now." But Chen hesitated, looking around at his creation. The impossible sanctuary that had taken him 3 years to build. Every joint, every curve, every carefully calculated stress point represented his escape from the corporate machine that had tried to own his soul. The thought of abandoning, it felt like tearing away pieces of himself. "Chen," Marcus hissed. "Move!" The first bullet shattered the morning silence, splintering bamboo inches from Chen's head. All hesitation vanished. The 3 of them dove toward the tunnel as gunfire erupted around them, the sanctuary's walls absorbing the impact with small explosions of fiber and sap. The tunnel was barely wide enough for one person, forcing them to crawl single file through the darkness. Chen had designed it as a last resort, never imagining he would actually need it. Behind them, shouts echoed through the sanctuary as the assassins discovered their escape route. "How far?" Sarah gasped, her voice muffled by the confined space. 200 meters, Chen replied, his knees scraping against the rough earth. "There's a hidden exit by the waterfall." The tunnel began to slope downward, following the natural contours of the hillside. Chen had spent weeks hand-digging this passage, reinforcing it with bamboo supports and waterproofing it with natural resins. Now, it might be the only thing keeping them alive. A distant explosion shook the ground above them, raining dirt into the tunnel. Chen's heart clenched. They were destroying his sanctuary, reducing years of work to splinters and ash. The quantum processor in his pocket felt heavier with each meter they crawled. "They're in the tunnel," Marcus announced grimly. Behind them, flashlight beams pierced the darkness like searching fingers. The assassins were closing the gap. The tunnel curved sharply to the left, following an underground stream that Chen had discovered during construction. The sound of rushing water grew louder, offering hope and new danger in equal measure. If the stream had risen due to recent rains, their exit might be flooded. There, Chen pointed ahead where grey light filtered through a curtain of hanging vines. The exit. They emerged behind the waterfall into a spray of mist and chaos. The river gorge yawned below them, its rocky walls slick with moisture. Chen's emergency cache was hidden in a crevice 20 meters down. Rope, supplies, and most importantly, the satellite phone that could contact his allies in the scientific community. "Can you climb?" Chen asked Sarah, noting the pallor of her face. "Better than I can run," she replied, managing a weak smile. Marcus went first, finding handholds in the ancient rock face with practiced efficiency. Sarah followed, her journalist's determination overcoming her fear of heights. Chen came last, pausing to look back at the waterfall that had hidden them. Halfway down, the shooting started again. Bullets sparked off the rocks above their heads as the assassins reached the tunnel exit. One of them was rappelling down after them, moving with deadly precision. "The cache is just below," Chen called out, but his words were lost in the roar of the waterfall. Marcus reached the hidden crevice first, pulling out the gear Chen had stored there months ago. The satellite phone came alive in his hands, its signal strong despite their remote location. But as he began to dial, the repelling assassin rounded the rock face above them, rifle raised. Sarah screamed a warning. Chen looked up to see the muzzle flash, felt the bullet tear through his shoulder, spinning him away from the rock wall. For a terrifying moment, he hung by one hand over the churning river below, the quantum processor slipping from his pocket. The device tumbled through space, its metal casing glinting in the morning sun. 5 years of research, the key to humanity's energy future, falling toward the rocks and rapids that would destroy it forever. Chen made his choice. Releasing his grip on the cliff face, he dove after the processor, racing gravity itself toward the churning water below. The bamboo sanctuary trembled as another explosion echoed through the valley. Marcus pressed his back against the wall of his workshop, watching dust rain from the intricately woven ceiling. Through the gaps in the bamboo lattice, he could see smoke rising from the northern perimeter where his early warning system had triggered. They'd found him. Sarah crouched beside him, her breathing shallow. "How many?" "At least 6, maybe more." Marcus's fingers flew across his tablet, activating the sanctuary's defensive protocols. Bamboo panels slid into place with mechanical precision, sealing vulnerable entry points. Hidden passages opened in the walls, revealing escape routes he'd hoped never to use. "The prototype," Sarah whispered urgently. "We have to." "It's already gone." Marcus gestured toward the empty workbench where his revolutionary energy converter had sat just hours before. "I moved it to the secondary lab when the perimeter sensors detected movement this morning." Another blast, closer this time. The sound of splintering bamboo carried on the wind. They were using explosives to clear the outer barriers, crude but effective. Marcus had designed his sanctuary to withstand natural disasters, not a military-style assault. Chen's voice crackled through the hidden speakers. "They're through the eastern wall, moving fast, professional formation. Corporate mercenaries, not government." "Nexus Industries?" Sarah asked. Marcus nodded grimly. "They want the converter technology. With it, they could revolutionize energy production and control it completely." He activated another sequence on his tablet. Throughout the sanctuary, bamboo walls began shifting, creating a maze of false passages and dead ends. But first, they have to survive my home field advantage. The sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the main corridor. Marcus grabbed Sarah's hand, leading her toward a concealed panel that slid open at his touch. Beyond lay a narrow tunnel, its walls lined with phosphorescent moss that provided dim illumination. "This connects to the underground network," he whispered. We can reach the secondary lab without being detected. They crawled through the tunnel, the bamboo framework creaking around them as the sanctuary continued its automated transformation. Behind them, Marcus could hear muffled shouts and the harsh crack of weapons fire. His defensive systems were buying them time, but not much. The tunnel emerged in a grove of ancient bamboo, their thick culms rising like cathedral pillars in the fading light. Marcus checked his tablet. The secondary lab was 50 meters ahead, hidden beneath a camouflaged floor of woven bamboo mats. "Movement," Sarah hissed, pointing through the grove. 3 figures in tactical gear moved between the bamboo stalks, their faces hidden behind night vision goggles. They advanced with military precision, weapons raised, scanning for targets. Marcus recognized the leader, Viktor Kozlov, Nexus Industries head of acquisitions. The man had a reputation for recovering lost technologies by any means necessary. Marcus activated a dormant subroutine on his tablet. Around them, the bamboo grove came alive. Stalks bent and swayed in coordinated patterns, creating a natural barrier between them and the mercenaries. Hidden speakers projected sound in multiple directions, making it impossible to pinpoint their location. Impressive. Victor's voice carried through the grove. Dr. Chen's reputation for innovation was not exaggerated. But parlor tricks won't save you. A burst of automatic gunfire shredded the bamboo near Marcus's head. He grabbed Sarah's arm, pulling her toward the lab entrance as splinters rained around them. The camouflaged floor panel recognized his biometric signature and slid open, revealing a ladder descending into darkness. They dropped into the underground chamber just as more gunfire erupted above. The lab was smaller than his main workshop, but equally sophisticated. The energy converter prototype sat on a central table, its crystalline core pulsing with soft blue light. Years of research and development condensed into a device no larger than a briefcase. "It's beautiful," Sarah breathed, staring at the swirling energy patterns within the crystal matrix. "It's dangerous," Marcus corrected. "In the wrong hands, this technology could destabilize entire power grids, create artificial scarcity, give one corporation unprecedented control over global energy markets." He began disconnecting the prototype's power feeds. "That's why I disappeared, why I hid." Footsteps echoed from the tunnel above. They'd found the entrance. Marcus sealed the prototype in a reinforced carrying case and slung it over his shoulder. "Emergency exit," he said, pointing to another concealed panel. "This leads to the river system. We can—" The chamber's main entrance exploded inward. Victor descended through the smoke, his weapon trained on them. "Dr. Marcus Chen, you've led us quite a chase." "It's over," Marcus said, his hand moving slowly toward his tablet. Victor smiled coldly. "Yes, it is. Hand over the prototype, and perhaps your companion survives this encounter." Sarah stepped forward, her eyes fixed on the mercenary leader. "You have no idea what you're dealing with. Enlighten me." She smiled, and Marcus realized with growing alarm that her expression matched Victor's predatory confidence perfectly. "I've been working for Nexus Industries for 3 years, Victor, waiting for exactly this moment." The bamboo groaned under the weight of the explosions as Marcus led Sarah deeper into the sanctuary's heart. Behind them, the corporate strike team methodically destroyed everything he had built over the past 3 years. Each detonation felt like a physical blow, but he forced himself to focus on the narrow path ahead. "The server room is just beyond that grove," he whispered, pointing toward a cluster of towering bamboo that swayed gently despite the chaos erupting around them. "If we can reach it." A bullet splintered the bamboo inches from Sarah's head. She dropped to her knees, pulling Marcus down with her as automatic gunfire erupted from their left flank. The assassins had split up, attempting to surround them. "They're herding us," Sarah gasped, pressing herself against the thick bamboo trunk. "They want us to go deeper." Marcus's mind raced. She was right. The attack pattern was too coordinated, too methodical. They weren't just trying to eliminate him, they wanted something specific. The realization hit him like ice water. "They don't know where the real data is stored," he said, his voice barely audible above the gunfire. Henderson must have kept that information compartmentalized. They need me alive to find it. Another explosion rocked the sanctuary, closer this time. Orange flames licked at the bamboo canopy above them, and Marcus watched in horror as his carefully engineered irrigation system began to fail. Water pressure dropped, and the fire spread faster than the automatic suppression system could handle. "The whole place is going to burn," Sarah said, reading his expression. "How long do we have?" 20 minutes, maybe less. Marcus checked his watch, calculating wind speed and humidity levels from memory. The bamboo is designed to be fire-resistant, but not under these conditions. They moved again, staying low as they navigated through the smoke-filled pathways. Marcus's sanctuary had become a maze of shadows and flame, the peaceful retreat transformed into something from a nightmare. Every corner could hide an assassin, every rustling bamboo stalk might conceal a gun barrel. As they approached the hidden server room, Marcus's heart sank. 3 men in tactical gear stood guard around the concealed entrance, their weapons trained on the surrounding area. They had found it. Henderson was right about one thing, Marcus whispered to Sarah. The water purification technology would change everything, but not in the way he imagined. Sarah looked at him questioningly, but there was no time to explain. One of the guards had spotted them, raising his rifle. Marcus grabbed Sarah's hand and pulled her behind a massive bamboo cluster, just as bullets began to fly. "There has to be another way," she said, checking her own weapon. "Some kind of back entrance?" Marcus closed his eyes, visualizing the 3-dimensional map of his sanctuary that existed only in his memory. Every tunnel, every hidden passage, every secret route he had carved through the bamboo forest over months of careful planning. "There is," he said finally, "but it means going through the burning section." Without waiting for her response, he led her away from the server room, deeper into the smoke. The heat grew intense as they approached the areas where Henderson's men had set their charges. The bamboo popped and hissed as moisture inside the stalks turned to steam, creating an otherworldly symphony of destruction. Marcus found the entrance he was looking for, a narrow gap between 2 massive bamboo clusters that appeared to be a natural formation. In reality, he had spent weeks engineering the illusion, creating a hidden pathway that led directly underneath the server room. They crawled through the tight space, the heat above them almost unbearable. Sarah's breathing grew labored, and Marcus could hear her struggling against the smoke inhalation. He pushed forward, knowing they had only minutes before the structural integrity of the entire sanctuary began to fail. The tunnel opened into a small underground chamber that Marcus had excavated by hand, its walls lined with waterproof bamboo panels. Banks of servers hummed quietly in the artificial environment, their cooling systems working overtime against the heat from above. "This is it," he said, moving to the central terminal. "Everything Henderson wants is right here. The complete water purification process, the molecular filtration technology, the manufacturing specifications." Sarah watched as his fingers flew over the keyboard. "You're not giving it to him?" It wasn't a question. She had seen the determination in his eyes, the same look he had worn when he first disappeared into the wilderness 3 years ago. "The technology works too well," Marcus said, not looking up from the screen. "It doesn't just purify water, it breaks down complex molecular structures at the atomic level. In the wrong hands, it becomes the perfect weapon. Henderson could contaminate entire water supplies, then offer the only solution." Above them, another explosion shook the chamber. Dust rained from the ceiling, and several server units flickered ominously. "We're out of time," Sarah said. Marcus nodded, entering the final command sequence. "I know." The helicopter's rotors thundered overhead as Marcus pressed his back against the bamboo wall, clutching the encrypted drive that contained 15 years of his life's work. The sanctuary he'd built with such care was now a battlefield, and every carefully engineered structure had become either shelter or trap. Sarah crouched beside him, her laptop balanced on her knees as she worked frantically to upload the files. 60%, she whispered, her fingers flying across the keys. The satellite uplink he'd built into the sanctuary's communication array was their only hope of getting the data out before Nexus Corporation silenced them forever. "They're landing in the clearing," Marcus said, peering through a gap in the bamboo weaving. 3 figures in tactical gear emerged from the helicopter, their movements precise and coordinated. The lead assassin, a woman with cold eyes that Marcus recognized from corporate security footage, gestured toward the main structure. "Keller always was thorough," the woman said, her voice carrying across the clearing. "Tear it apart, piece by piece if you have to. The prototype specifications cannot leave this place." Marcus felt Sarah's hand grip his arm. She understood now why Nexus had hunted him across 3 continents. The files on that drive didn't just contain his revolutionary water purification technology. They contained evidence that Nexus had been deliberately poisoning water supplies in developing nations to create demand for their expensive filtration systems. 75%, Sarah breathed. A burst of automatic gunfire shattered the morning air as the assassins began their methodical destruction of the sanctuary. Bamboo splintered and crashed, each sound like a knife through Marcus's heart. The meditation pavilion where he'd found peace collapsed in a heap of broken poles. The workshop where he'd crafted his life's work erupted in flames. "The water gardens," Marcus whispered urgently. "There's a hidden tunnel beneath the main pond. It leads to the old mining shaft." Sarah shook her head. 85%. "I'm not leaving without this upload." The assassins were getting closer, their systematic search pattern bringing them inexorably toward their hiding spot. Marcus could hear them communicating through radio earpieces, coordinating their approach. He'd designed the sanctuary to be a haven, not a fortress, and every peaceful curve and open space now worked against them. "Sir, we've found the communication array," one of the men reported. "Should we destroy it?" "Negative," the lead assassin replied. "We need to know what he's transmitted and to whom." Marcus closed his eyes, his mind racing through the sanctuary's layout. There was one defensive measure he'd hoped never to use, a failsafe he'd built into the very foundations. The bamboo structures weren't just held together by traditional joinery. He'd integrated a network of quick-release mechanisms throughout the complex. "When I say run," he told Sarah, "head for the water gardens and don't look back." 92%. She replied stubbornly. The first assassin rounded the corner of their shelter, rifle raised. Marcus threw himself sideways, tackling the man as gunfire erupted where his head had been moments before. They crashed into a support post, and Marcus felt the familiar click of the release mechanism engaging. "Run!" he shouted. Sarah slammed the laptop shut and bolted for the pond as sections of the sanctuary began collapsing in a carefully orchestrated cascade. Marcus had designed it so that if one key support failed, the entire structure would fold inward like an origami sculpture, creating maximum chaos while protecting the underground water systems that were his true legacy. The lead assassin emerged from the collapsing bamboo maze, her tactical gear torn and her cold composure finally cracked. "Keller!" she screamed. "You can't hide forever!" Marcus helped Sarah into the tunnel entrance, hidden beneath the pond's artificial waterfall. The sound of rushing water would mask their movement, and the tunnel led to the old mining shaft that connected to a network of caves stretching for miles through the mountains. "Did the upload finish?" he asked as they splashed through the underground stream. Sarah nodded, water dripping from her hair. 100%. "The files are already being distributed to journalists, environmental groups, and government agencies worldwide. Nexus can't stop it now." Behind them, the sanctuary continued its death throes, 15 years of careful construction undoing itself in minutes. But as they climbed through the darkness toward freedom, Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced since he'd first fled into the wilderness. Hope. The bamboo would grow back. The water would continue flowing clean and pure from the mountain springs, and somewhere in the ruins of his sanctuary, investigators would find the hidden laboratory where he'd perfected technology that could provide clean water to billions of people without corporate interference. "Where do we go now?" Sarah asked as they reached the cave entrance high above the valley. Marcus looked back at the smoke rising from his destroyed haven, then toward the distant peaks where other sanctuaries waited to be built. "Forward," he said simply. "We go forward." The bamboo cathedral groaned under the weight of approaching helicopters, their rotors chopping through the morning mist like mechanical vultures. David pressed his back against the central support beam, his fingers dancing across the tablet's surface one final time. The upload bar crawled toward completion. 87%, 88. "They're landing!" Maya's voice carried across the sanctuary as she peered through the intricately woven walls. 3 aircraft had touched down in the clearing beyond the grove, disgorging black-clad figures who moved with military precision. Chen emerged from the laboratory dome, clutching a sealed container to his chest. "The backup samples are secure," he called out, but his face was grim. "If we don't make it out—" "We will," David interrupted, though his own certainty wavered. 91%. The quantum encryption protocols he developed over 5 years of isolation were finally being transmitted to every major university, research institution, and news organization worldwide. The revolutionary water purification technology that could solve the global crisis, the same technology Meridian Corporation had killed to suppress, would soon be beyond their reach forever. The first assassin appeared through the bamboo like a shadow-given form. David recognized the pale man from the attack on his Seattle lab, the one whose eyes held no trace of humanity. Behind him came others, their weapons raised, their movements coordinated with lethal efficiency. "Dr. Nakamura," the pale man called out, his voice echoing strangely in the acoustic chamber David had so carefully designed. "You've caused us considerable trouble." 94%. David's thumb hovered over the tablet screen, ready to trigger the sanctuary's final defense, a mechanism he'd hoped never to use. The bamboo around them wasn't just architecture, it was a living network, each joint and connection embedded with sensors and actuators he'd developed during his exile. "The blood of 100,000 people is on your hands," David replied, stepping away from the support beam. "Clean water is a human right, not a commodity to be hoarded." The assassin's smile was razor-thin. "Rights are luxuries the dead cannot afford." 97%. The pale man raised his weapon, and David triggered the sanctuary's collapse sequence. The effect was immediate and terrifying. The bamboo joints began retracting in a carefully choreographed pattern, the walls folding inward like origami in reverse. What had taken months to grow and shape was undoing itself in seconds, transforming the cathedral into a maze of shifting passages and falling barriers. The assassins scattered as sections of the ceiling crashed down, but they were professionals, adapting quickly to the chaos, using the collapsing structure as cover while they pressed their attack. Gunfire erupted in sharp bursts, the bullets splintering the bamboo and sending splinters flying like wooden shrapnel. 99%. David grabbed Chen's arm and pulled him toward the laboratory dome, the only section of the sanctuary designed to remain stable during collapse. Behind them, the pale man emerged from a cloud of bamboo dust, his weapon tracking their movement with mechanical precision. "You cannot hide forever, Doctor. The technology dies with you." "No," David whispered, watching the upload bar complete its final fraction. "It lives beyond all of us now. 100%. The tablet screen flashed green, and somewhere in the distance, David heard the distinct whine of approaching sirens. Maya had reached the emergency transmitter, broadcasting their location to every rescue service in the region. Meridian's window for a quiet assassination was rapidly closing. The pale man's mask of control finally cracked, revealing something desperate underneath. He raised his weapon with killing intent, but the laboratory dome's blast doors were already sealing shut, triggered by the completion of David's upload. Inside the reinforced chamber, Chen finally allowed himself to breathe. "Is it done?" David nodded, letting the tablet slip from his trembling fingers. "The files are already propagating across the network. Within hours, the purification technology will be public domain. Meridian can't stop it now." Through the dome's transparent walls, they watched the sanctuary complete its transformation. Where once stood a testament to human ingenuity and natural harmony, only twisted bamboo and frustrated assassins remained. The pale man stood amid the wreckage, speaking rapidly into a communication device, his mission an unqualified failure. The sirens grew louder, and David allowed himself a smile. His peaceful retreat was gone, but the secret he'd protected, the gift of clean water for the world's most vulnerable populations, would survive. In the end, that was the only sanctuary that truly mattered. Maya's face appeared at the dome's window, grinning fiercely. "Ready to rejoin the world, Dr. Nakamura?" David looked out at the approaching rescue helicopters, then back at the ruins of his bamboo cathedral. "More ready than I've ever been."